JPC. I am the outlaw of college football. And you are the common Joe and the common soul, even more so than all those media talking heads. Man, I love that phrase. I can say it in so many different ways on this Thanksgiving Eve. So, today I want to jump in here real quick and talk about the college football playoff rankings that came out yesterday. The main one I want to talk about is the addition of Cincinnati, the big old pink elephant in the room that everybody has an opinion about. And, I've been back and forth on this whole Cincinnati thing. And, at the beginning of the year, I said if they beat Indiana and Notre Dame, they may deserve a look to be in the playoffs. That's before we discovered that Indiana was trash. And they were going back to the way Indiana used to be. And then they had that 3-game period where they struggled with not so great competition from the AAC. But then they come back last week and blew out a respectable SMU squad that was ranked numerous weeks, 48-14. So then I'm saying, they get a little respect back from me for that. I gotta say, I'm not a man that's set in my ways. I can have my mind changed. I'm not one of those people that once I've decided on something that I want to try to force that agenda no matter what, because that sounds like a line from some political bullshit. But the thing is, I've now come to think that Cincinnati, if they win out, should probably be in. So yes, I've changed my mind again about Cincinnati. Now, the new thing that's coming around is that the committee is suddenly, we got this point system. We got this point system. We don't just go on head-to-head alone. And that's why we put Oregon over Ohio State and then really didn't do it with Michigan State and Michigan because we have a point system. Yeah, okay. I don't care what your little point system is. I can respect having a point system so that certain things do not X out certain things. And that way you can be fair across the board in the eyes of the fans. But they're not coming across like that. Y'all are actually coming across very much opposite of being fair. And if you want to come across as being fair, committee, the first thing and the only thing to me that you need to take into account is head-to-head. Now, granted, Cincinnati only had to get up for one game this year from what some people are saying. They're saying, well, they didn't have to play a real tough conference schedule. They may have had 2 conference games that seemed tough, 2 non-conference games that seemed tough, which one ended up not being, but they play in a weak conference is what a lot of people will say. They play 7 or 8 cupcakes a year. But I don't really believe that because the AAC is not your typical non-Power 5 conference. They got teams like Memphis, Houston, East Carolina, Central Florida. All these teams in this conference have at one time or another, SMU, have at one time or another beaten Power 5 teams on the regular. So I don't really buy into all that. I think the AAC is a conference that's teetering on possibly being a Power 6 conference. So I don't really buy all that mumbo jumbo about Cincinnati not playing a tough conference schedule. The only thing that pissed me off about Cincinnati, that got me off their bandwagon, was the fact that they struggled with teams in their conference that were not really considered good teams. You can struggle with the better top of the AAC and keep your respect. But if you struggle with the likes of Tulsa and Navy and whatnot, that's when you start losing a little bit of respect. And that's what happened in that 3-week period. But they got some of it back by beating a good SMU team. What I can't stand about some people is like, well, SMU they've lost a couple of games now. But they were ranked and people were giving them all this pub, man, until they got beat by Houston. But they're still a pretty good team. So I think we need to pump the brakes on the whole Cincinnati hasn't played a tough conference thing, because they have. But like I said, that 3-week period where they struggled with the teams that are not so good in your conference may come back to bite them in the end. They may end up putting Notre Dame or Michigan or somebody like that over them, or even Oklahoma or Oklahoma State if one of those teams wins out, in my opinion. So it's a back and forth thing. You and guys and gals tell me what you think. Do you think Cincinnati in the end will deserve to be in, or do you think they're going to jump teams over them possibly at the end? And then there's also the caveat of some people talking about Alabama, even if they lose to Georgia, will stay in the top 4. I'm an Alabama fan, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that's bullshit. We don't deserve to be in the top 4. We got 2 losses compared to Cincinnati's 0. Now, if it's Alabama had 2 losses and Cincinnati had 1 loss, then yeah, you'd probably put Alabama in. But because there's a 2-game gap there, I think Cincinnati has to be in over any team that's got 2 losses, without a shadow of a doubt. But there's going to be other 1-loss teams out there that's going to have a better resume than Cincinnati. And I'm afraid at the end, what's going to happen is Oklahoma or Oklahoma State is going to take their place. Notre Dame, if Cincinnati had beaten Notre Dame earlier in the year, like Oregon did Ohio State, and if it had been a neutral site game or at Cincinnati, I could see people wanting to put Notre Dame over them. But they beat them at Touchdown Jesus. They beat them in the face of Touchdown Jesus. They beat them in the hallowed grounds of Notre Dame Stadium. So you cannot, and if they do, they're going to lose all credibility. And I fully expect the 12-team playoff and the committee to be gone. The 12-team playoff will be coming and the committee will be gone. And they'll come up with some other way to do this thing if they put Notre Dame in over Cincinnati. That's my opinion. You cannot put Notre Dame in over Cincinnati, I don't think. Only because they beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. But I could definitely see them putting Oklahoma or Oklahoma State in over Cincinnati. And that's all I got to say about that. You guys and gals tell me what you think. Whether you think Cincinnati belongs, whether you think they still got a lot to prove. Drop it in the comment section. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams.